I would do it if YouTube wouldn't penalize me, but I got to fire up the LMFAO with Lil Jon. Shots, 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 shots. Because that's all tonight was about, Joe. They just weren't going in. And, of course, the guy that you would least expect to do shots, Jaccob Slavin, gets it done in overtime, Joe. You know what that means? As we open up the After Dark brought to you by Bloom & Blinds, give them a call, 919-980-9815. You might need blinds repair after you threw something at your window because of all the shots that were getting blocked by the Washington Capitals. But, Joe, Canes won it overtime. Update the spreadsheet, sir. What do we got?
I did.
What do we got?
Oh, my goodness. Well, their losing streak in single OT games is now over. That's good. They've now won 2 OT games in a row. That's also good. The real number here, though, is game 1. The Carolina Hurricanes have won game 1 now 9 times under Rod Brind'Amour. They've won the series in 8 of those 9. 7 of those 9, they have a chance to make it 8 here.
I love it. I was so hype about the fact that I'm also proud of my YouTube caption today with the Canes storming the Capitals tonight in overtime and getting it done.
I do wish it was Sunday, so you could have put in Slavin Sunday.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. While Bloom & Blinds is our presenting sponsor for After Dark. Shout out to Alex. This one's for you, Washington Capitals fans. A Slavin Sunday.
Drown in the arena.
Drown your tears in that. Drown your tears in that. Mike Maniscalco, Canes play-by-play. Before he gets on the bus, a little blends for you, sir. This was a frustrating experience until the end, right there with Jaccob Slavin.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, you say it could be frustrating. They were the Canes were the better team all the way through.
Yeah.
So what you're hoping for is you don't have one of these. The better team, and I'm sitting here telling you, well, the better team didn't win. You know, nobody likes to have that for any kind of wrap-up. But where I give Washington credit, they saw something that they could do, which was block a lot of Kane shots. They did it 32 times tonight.
Yeah.
But every other category was all Carolina. And this tonight was as good of a road game as you can play against a team like Washington that you can ask for. And look, Logan Thompson was really good for Washington. Frederik Andersen wasn't taxed, 14 shots. That's the total. I'm sure it'll change because that's what the NHL does. But this is a game for me that if you're the Canes, if you can do this 3 more times, you're going to be in really good shape. Yeah, I know what I'm saying by saying 3 more times, but you're going to be in really good shape. And look, the penalty kill continues to be great. I thought that the power play had a couple of good looks. It wasn't great, but overall,
I know we're focused on the last. We're focused on that one at the end of regulation. I think that would be the one that we're both kind of like.
Yeah, no, I get it, and if the Canes don't win, we will absolutely put that one under the microscope for the rest of the series. But you know what? The Canes won, so let's move on. I'm going to choose to say they had momentum off of that power play, and it carried into overtime.
We're going to bring up April 2nd as a playoff-like atmosphere game, too, that kind of bled over into this one, because that was definitely brought up in the national broadcast a lot.
I mean, no, I'm not. I actually said this earlier because I think I've done every Washington, D.C. radio station that's out there. Is NPR still a thing? I'll put that one out there for you, Giulio. But as far as I'm concerned, it was one of these things we're coming into this game. I just said, look, this is what the Canes need to do to win, and this is how the series is going to be matched up, and it's styles make fights. Well, the Canes, the one thing I used to love about boxing when I watched it is the team that dictated how the fight went normally won if it went to a decision. And that's what happened tonight. The Canes dictated how this game was going to be played.
It's funny. One of our YouTube comments from B. Grace. Let's be honest here. It felt like a classic Canes experience was in the works, but you keep up that zone pressure and you get rewarded, baby. I saw a lot of folks on Blue Sky.
Can I jump in?
A lot of folks at Blue Sky were using that experience Canes hockey image, and I get it. And frustrated.
No.
Yeah.
Let me jump in. Can we just stop this? Can we stop living in the past?
Mike,
for the love of God.
Let's go, baby.
I mean, it's everywhere. I'm not saying that there are certain guys who just pop up and show up on podcasts who, there's other stuff that they can do in talking about things. I mean, I get it. We all got to get paid or shirts or whatever it is that we do. But like everybody talks about, remember back in 2002 and Jesus, 23 years later, folks. When does it end? It's like, are these the same people who go into a store with an expired coupon and say, well, can you still use it? And the thing for me tonight is this: if you haven't learned that this team is resilient by now, there is no lesson I can teach you about it. None.
Yes. No, I'm with you on that. I'm with you.
There was some big 2010s.
You know what that was? That was
pent up frustration.
That was hashtag pray for Maniscalco coming out. That's what that was. That was that.
I mean, the first comment, Joe, the first comment that comes up, Joe's, is, I thought we were going to be living in the past, but here we are in the future.
All right, real quick, because I know you got to hop on the bus, so we appreciate the time.
Wait.
What?
The goalie was good. You thought he was good
for Washington?
Yeah.
Logan Thompson. He faced 33 shots.
Okay.
And he made that where he put himself in trouble and bails himself out on Svechnikov was good. His glove was as good as you could ask.
I was gonna say I heard your call on that, and you caught the opportunity there, and yes, he made an incredible save in that situation. Good awareness. No, what I was gonna ask you about was Freddie Anderson, because we've seen this, and I didn't have a chance to hear a lot of the broadcast with you and Tripp, but I was curious about Tripp and your thoughts on that first goal. I think that was a collective issue for the Carolina Hurricanes. And yes, you could say that Freddie Anderson probably should have had a better look at that. But I think the Canes the Canes just got beat on that rush. Straight up, they got beat on that rush. But having not spent a lot of time getting tested because the Canes dominated on the offensive zone so much and they generated so many shots, I thought that was a tricky spot for Freddie that I thought he handled himself the rest of the way.
Yeah, it was. And look, those are the goals where if you're watching it in a game where you're like, the Canes have been better all the way through, and that's the goal that lets in. Now, does this lead into something else? Does this lead into another leaky goal, or is there another situation here? And it didn't. And the main reason why were the Canes. This was textbook Rod Brindamore Canes hockey, from puck possession, valuing the puck. There were a couple of turnovers. There were a few that came in the third period, but the Canes, again, I think they only gave up, I'm taking a look, third period and overtime only gave up 3 shots, I think, in third period in OT. So, there was not a reason that you really had to worry about how your goalie was going to play tonight after you saw how the Canes locked it up. And again, this is one of these, I'm great that Pat Malley's getting visual time on this one. He is outstanding as far as road engineers go. But it to me comes into, when Freddie needed to make the saves, he made the saves.
Honestly, that's all you can ask. All right, man.
And look, guys, I almost said dudes. Guys.
This guy's being dudes, Mike.
We need dudes. Postseason hockey is about making the saves. Mm-hmm. It really is. We can talk about the goals you let in, but it's when you do that, can you make the saves that don't let a game where you're like, oh God, why is it 1-0? You can't let it get to 2-0, and the Canes didn't let it get to 2-0.
Did you hear that? That was yet another ping off the bar tonight. Was that 5?
That's all I meant about the goalie. I felt like the Canes' best scoring chances went off the woodwork, and the other ones kind of felt like they were just
4
patented Canes.
It was 4. Okay, I had counted 5 before. But either way, that's a lot, man.
Yeah, but Joe Giglio, as the great goaltenders will tell you, that's not even a shot on goal. So I got to stop the ones that aren't going in.
It's fair.
A great goaltender once said that. You want me to stop the ones that aren't going in now too?
Yeah. Is that Tom Barrasso?
That would be Tom Barrasso.
Called that one. All right, man. Go get on the bus. We'll talk to you Thursday.
You got it, guys. Thank you.
Right, man. Mike Maniscalco, Canes play-by-play here on OG After Dark, which again brought to you by Blue Man Blinds. Give them a call, 919-980-9815. You doing 10 or more window treatments? They're going to give you 10% off.
You want to radio this thing up with Luke, or?
Well, I mean, Luke's here. How you want to radio this thing up? Luke's not columnist, use an observer.
No, the time to be whisperer, number 1. But no, Luke, classic out of town radio bit. I think it's time for the Capitals to panic because Ovechkin, what did he do in this game?
1 shot on goal. First of all, let's get to the important stuff first, please.
Yeah.
Important stuff first. Let's correct everything Mike got wrong.
Okay.
So number one, we can still talk about 2002 because that's when I was there. I don't know where Mike was, Albany or someplace.
He was in Richmond, I think.
That's where I was when Tom Barrasso told Dave Droshak the correct quote, which is, "Now I got to stop the ones that are going wide." So I did, if you're going to sing the lyrics, get the words right.
No, I'm sorry. 02, yes, he probably still was up in New York.
Now, women don't get woolly; they get weary. You can't get stressed wearing a dress. I hate when people say get the lyrics. Anyway, by
the way, I think it's perfectly. I get where Mike's coming from. Mike's got to hear this stuff all the time. I get his frustration, and you are tapping into a little bit of 10 years of dealing with callers on the radio. But I do think it's fair, and I'm not going to go full PK Subban on the broadcast. Luke, do you
force coming from his fingers?
You say, Luke, do you just want to tell the audience what you texted us about PK Subban?
I have to look it up. Yeah,
PK, basically,
the force is strong in that one.
Yeah, basically that he's got Vader-esque hate in him.
PK's hate for RBA is Vader-esque. So the sunglasses keep the blue bolts of the force from coming out of his eyes.
Ultimate power. But no, I do think it's fair that we can be amazed by the amount of shot attempts. 91 shot attempts, 31 shots on goal in regulation, 31 blocked shot, all that kind of stuff. We can do the Corsi Kings if you want to. And this is a knock on the Canes. I think it's valid. I'm not going to go all in like PK. I'm not going to go all in like McDonough, who, like, as we were texting, is like a dog with a bone when it comes to that kind of stuff. We know these stories. It can be kind of drilled in your head and you can kind of roll your eyes at it, but it is a thing. Yeah. And I was kind of worried, like, hey man, I've seen this movie before with the Canes.
Yeah. And to Mike's point, like, I don't think people, when they say, oh, the Hurricanes experience, I don't think they're talking about 2009.
No.
I mean, they're talking about the Brindamore era, the shot volume era, and the fact that how many playoff games have we seen the Hurricanes put 40 shots on a goalie, get one goal, fail to score on a power play, key power play, and lose? So we had a lot of the elements of frustration against the Bruins and the Rangers and the Panthers and all the stuff that people are shell-shocked about. The difference is, and this happened a little bit against the Devils too, the Hurricanes are winning these games.
Mm-hmm.
So to whatever extent, I think Mike's point's really valid that you're not giving this team enough credit for being resilient, for fighting through some of that stuff. Like this gets to 2-0 because of goaltending, or you're not taking care of the puck, or you get frustrated because all of your shots are going off the crossbar. And it's a completely different game, maybe a different series, but you stick with your game, you continue to pound away, and eventually in overtime, you get through. I mean, there's so much about this game to me that is going to get overlooked because of the conversation on television. Like, number one, Hurricanes have killed 17 straight penalties in the playoffs. Alex Ovechkin had one shot on Golden Knight, playing mostly against Orlov and Chatfield. Like, these are the things you have to, doesn't matter how many shots you get.
Yeah.
These are the things that you have to do to beat Washington to even be in the conversation. So, I think a lot of that stuff is going to get overlooked. Like what's everyone going to be talking about after this game? Oh, Ray Ferraro accidentally saying that the Canes stole one in a game they outshot the Capitals 3-1, because it's impossible for an ESPN broadcaster to even countenance the idea that the Hurricanes might ever be the better team in a series, right? Like, it's just like, and I love Ray, don't get me wrong, but it's just like hardwired into the broadcast. It's like, let's go to the intermission and hear about why the Hurricanes aren't going to win. And it's like, PK's in there and like, Mess and Pronger are throwing shade. Not like Mess ever has much to add. Pronger at least has some insights. But and PK, like, obviously, he's opinionated. He does not like the way the Hurricanes play. I think that's fine. I'd rather have that from a broadcaster than one who's just up there, mouthing platitudes and picking the cold RX Leader of the Year Mark Messier Award for the leadership in the area of leadership, which I'm sure will be announced any day now.
At any point. I think that's the key thing here too. If we're going to focus on Ovechkin and what he didn't do tonight, you have to credit the Canes for the fact that Ovechkin only had one shot. And that was a shot that broke Tom Wilson's stick, was it not? Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was the shot. It was a hell of a shot. But it's simple to say we went over to Invisalign and you brought up
coached him up.
Right. You coached him up with like, so Slavin on Ovechkin, right? You told Rod the X's and O's, man. He's like, he was taking notes.
Clearly, I should have said Slavin to score.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
That was a step behind.
And by the way, somebody made big money on Slavin as an OT goal winner here, man. I got to imagine that the odds, I didn't check, but I got to imagine the odds on Slavin OT would be.
Now, that's great. Not a Canes fan then, because the random defenseman to score.
But
is always the way with that was a perfect Hurricanes game.
It was
right down to not scoring on the power play.
Mm-hmm.
You had a goalie only had to make 11 saves or whatever it was. No action, completely dominate one period. And then they win the game on a random defenseman scoring.
Yeah. Tip of the Nicky Wallin hat to Jaccob Slavin.
Yes.
Yeah. I do think if we're going to criticize, or I'm going to criticize ESPN, I do think we have to give McDonough credit for every time Tom Wilson fell down, McDonough would say, Wilson goes to the ice, fans want a penalty. Like there was tremendous Tom Wilson falling down shade from McDonough tonight, which I appreciated. I thought that was a fine sort of version of the genre.
All right. About the point with the Canes being the better team, the Canes dominating in this situation. It's quick. I brought up Vegas there about Slavin. And this was a thing that I was somewhat surprised by going into the series, that the Canes were odds-on favorites in this series. And
favored tonight.
And favored tonight on the road.
That surprised me.
I guess the series has officially started because they won tonight. And if we have all of these metrics, if Vegas likes the Canes, not just tonight, but for the series and all these other things, and statistically, everything is going to be spit out, whether it's a pie chart from, I don't know, Hockey Viz or whatever, and Natural Stat Trick will show you all these visualizations as the Canes dominating. What is the mental block for people to just say, yeah, man, the Canes are favorites, and they went out there and they executed the way that they wanted to. They dominated play, and they got out of there with a win in overtime, which is very difficult to do in the postseason.
They played their game and beat Washington at it. I think it's a couple things. I think one is, and we were another thing we were texting about during the game is how many times McDonough mentioned never made it out of the conference finals under Rod Brent. Look, Ovechkin was 0-for-6 in the second round until they won the cup. He didn't even make it to the conference finals his entire career until 2018. So I think we underestimate. We've talked about this before. We underestimate how hard it is to win a series 7 years in a row, the way the Hurricanes have. But there is this stigma because of the 0-for-4 against Boston, because of the 0-for-4 against the Panthers, the not a sweep. I think people just still don't believe in them as a contender. They just haven't gotten over that mental hump of this is a serious team that we have to take seriously. Maybe it just takes that to do it. Other franchises get that by, just sort of by acclamation, like, oh yes, the Leafs very much a contender, very much a contender, because they, certainly have a history of playoff success.
They're the Cowboys.
Yeah, the Giants, whatever.
That's insulting to the Leafs to call them the Cowboys, but the point is, because at least the Leafs make the playoffs. That kind of a thing.
But there's certain,
you got to talk about them.
And some of it is star power, right? There's no we've talked about this before. There's no McDavid. There's no McKinnon. There's no Marner or Tavares, although he's
who was in
Stars have
tonight. Yeah.
But how much does that really matter? At
ESPN? That's all that matters.
No. I mean, at ESPN, sure, but I'm saying in the hockey world at large.
Yeah, but you know this, Luke. TV people need the easiest possible talking points. They're not watching 82 Canes games. I don't blame them. They're not watching the Blues 82 games either. You know what I mean? But they know the Stars. They know their talking points. Usually the Stars are better talkers too. God bless Jaccob Slavin. I don't think I've ever heard him say shit with his mouth full of it. Like, I just, I know he's super religious and he's super nice and he's like super caring and all these things.
Seth Jarvis is sitting right there, by the way.
And
Seth Jarvis is your crossover.
You
star.
heard McDonough say Seth Jarvis becoming one of the top forwards in this league.
Yeah.
And part of that, of course, is the Four Nations and playing in some more things and being on a bigger stage. I heard him say it. He's had 2 30-goal seasons and he's not
even 24 yet. Yeah.
And that's part of it is like the Canes have not had a 100-point scorer since 2006. And it's kind of crazy if you think about it. They haven't had one.
Yeah.
Like stumble into one. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I think from that angle, the ESPN angle, I can see their frustration because there's also old school, Moneyball, the grumpy guy at the table wanting to play David Justice, right? Like we're not playing Chris Hatteberg or Scott Hatteberg. We're going to play, because I've been scouting for 50 years and I know what the cup winner looks like. It doesn't look like this.
This is you're basically the Art Howe, Philip Seymour Hoffman argument that I'm not going to play Lewin Stankoven. He's too short. We're going to play some 6'4" guy who can't skate and grew up in Tillitsburg, Ontario.
Exactly. So
Which I believe is where Colin Campbell lives. Speaking of old school hockey folks,
it's funny. We talked about Wilson, and I've been hearing about how this is a reformed Wilson. He's not the same guy that we saw in 2019, and yet we already referenced the McDonough being very polite in the way he would fall down to the ice, and the fans looking for a call. He also decided to take the mouth guard out of Sebastian Aho, which was classic Tom Wilson shenanigans. I thought it took a while for this game to get chippy. It took a while for like the actual fights to carry over. I thought we were making too big of a deal of what happened on April 2nd as some sort of carryover effect into what was going to happen in this series. For about 2.5 periods, it kind of felt that way. And then things started getting a little bit spicier on that one. I got to imagine that in game 2, having just lost, that Washington is kind of up. They're going to up a little bit of that feistiness for the Canes, which, and we talked about this with Brendan Moore earlier in the week, not something they want to do. What did he say? What was the line? You sorted it out on the handshake line. That's when you sorted it out. But I can see Washington amping this thing up.
I think Luke has this right. The Hurricanes played their game and won their game.
Yep.
Like the Capitals game, while they are much better and much deeper than I've ever seen them, Luke, even their championship team, that top line is a fucking handful.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not make an impact on this hockey game in any germane way.
But they're going to.
They will.
They're going to.
They will.
That's
of course they will.
That's been the Canes' Achilles heel in a lot of these series where we talk about their depth and the depth scoring. And guys like, look, as a great story as Stankoven is, and we can do, what did I see from my guy Mikey DFW, where when you look at the salary to goals postseason ratio, Stanky's clearly winning that argument against Mikko Rantanen, hat trick aside. Okay, I get all that stuff, but the Achilles heel for the Canes has been those top end guys, even the older ones like Ovechkin, finding their way.
Yeah.
When your best players can affect the game in all sorts of ways, but they also got to get on the score sheet, which again would be the thing that might once again kind of raise that red flag. But we know they're capable of it because we saw it in the last series.
Yeah, and look, if the Hurricanes are ever going to break through and play for Stanley Cup, win a Stanley Cup, it's not going to be because Andrei Svechnikov got hot and scored 14 goals. It's going to be because Andrei Svechnikov got hot and Sebastian Aho got hot and Jordan Staal scored a couple and Stankoven. It's going to have to be a team effort. This cannot be a Sidney Crosby drags the Hurricanes into the Stanley Cup Finals. It's not going to be like Connor McDavid in Edmonton the first couple of years. It's got to be a team effort. So I think one thing we've seen from the Hurricanes this year, and I wrote about this after game 1 against the Devils. I think I've been pretty much borne out by everything that's happened since. This is a more mature postseason team that did not get drawn into anything with Timo Meier. They did not get drawn into anything with Eric Halla. They didn't get drawn into any of the, I actually thought Sheldon Keefe was one of the more reasonable opposing coaches we've dealt with. He was pretty, even keel's not the word, but he was kind of like honest about stuff. He was basically just like, he wasn't saying like, Aho's diving or any of that stuff. It was all just kind of like, yeah, we beat them in these areas and we have to be better in these areas. And they were better than I thought he was kind of, he wasn't like super funny and he wasn't like, making all kinds of stand-up comic routines like Paul Maurice. I just thought he had a real sort of honest assessment of what was going on. And part of that was they could not goad the Hurricanes into taking retaliation penalties. And that was a huge issue for the Hurricanes against both the Rangers and the Panthers. And even going back to the Bruins, whether it was Tony DeAngelo or Dougie Hamilton, the Hurricanes let those teams get in their kitchens. Yeah. And neither the Devils nor the Capitals so far, game 2 is going to be a real mental test, have been able to do that. There were a couple points in this game where the Hurricanes could have, shot out a glove or, if Aho punches Tom Wilson there, no one would begrudge him. But Aho kind of turns to the lineman and is like, you see this shit? Like, you see that? Like, this clown? Like, it was almost disrespectful the way that Aho kind of looked at Tom Wilson like, buddy?
Yeah, dude.
It's like, it's the old thing about, your guy wants to, anyway.
I think Tom is giving Aho a preview of what it's like to have a toddler. Maybe that's what it is. Congrats to Sebastian.
Tom Wilson literally throwing his pacifier out of the
exactly. It's like, oh, you thought this was gonna be easy? No, it's not. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you what's up.
I'm disappointed in myself. I'm a little bit disappointed in Luke for not spinning a thread for me here.
Okay,
because I'm watching the game, and I can say these things now. They had a Caesar Sportsbook ad, and I forgot that building has a geofence. You could only use the Caesar Sportsbook.
Oh, you hated that.
And then I'm looking at the building, and I'm like, wait a second, that's where NC State won the ACC championship. But the Wolfblood, Rod Brindamore. You have to understand. I totally forgot they won Game 7 there in 2019. So Rod was really the the keymaster who opened up the arena for NC State, and now NC State keeps it open for Rod, and that's why they won tonight.
Oof. My man,
right?
We're gonna get you some help.
Yeah, you need an intervention.
Joe and I are gonna get. It's okay. It's okay.
It's the building. They got
You're doing great. You're doing great, kid.
Yeah,
we're gonna get
great,
you some help.
sweetie.
It's okay.
You're doing great.
You're doing great.
Luke DeCock, columnist, News and Observer. All right, man. Appreciate the time. We will see you on Thursday.
All right.
It's all about the building. The mojo.
From Brandon. Jesus.
I thought of that though. I was like, oh yeah,
of course. Of course.
But I forgot that the Canes won Game 7 there. I'm so thrown off by the Canes playing as the visiting team and not have home ice. It's odd to me. Going all the way back to 06 if I really want to get Luke going.
Somebody check on PK. Oh, we checked on PK, man.
No, Mike's got us.
We checked on PK, man. From Harry, hey, Gordon Miller, thanks for that parlay, jackass.
Come on.
Yeah, Gordon did text us saying that you have to be the new Hank. The Hank is retired. The Hank is retired.
It's not me, I promise.
McDonough's terrible. I mean, McDonough's not terrible. I think it's just the way the producers want to set these things up. And Ovechkin's obviously the big Ovechkin's the hook.
Sure.
We know this.
He literally just set the record for most goals in league history.
Right. Like let's not galaxy brain this.
And scored 4 in the previous series.
He's a future Hall of Famer who just scored 4 in the previous series. He is the all-time leading goal scorer. Yeah, he's the hit. But I mean, for heaven's sake, we can't talk about the Canes just a little bit now. Matt, not the time to get cocky. Good win, but treat it as luck getting a win on the road. Yeah, I think most people understand how fortunate they were to get out of there with that win.
Was it luck? They had their 3 best chances hit the post or the crossbar. I mean, that's bad luck, actually.
Luck has nothing to do with it. Is that what you're getting at?
I think they completely outplayed them in the very first period in a swarming way. Actually, I take it back. The true recent Canes playoff experience would to be outplay them, outshoot them, dominate them, and then give up a goal in the final 2 minutes of the period. So to avoid that, I thought was a win just to get out of there 0-0. Most people would have taken that as, wow, the Canes just dominated and the score's tied. I took it the other way. I was like, well, they didn't give up the dumb goal at the end of the period, which they are prone to do in the playoffs. So I thought that was good. Obviously, Protas's goal, I had no problem.
No.
With the shot that the guy made. Like, he lasered that thing under the pad. To your point, though, you go back and why was he that alone? And then you can quibble. But I've tried to tell you about that guy because I've seen him twice this year.
Canes,
he's a fucking monster, that guy.
They got beat on that goal straight up.
Yeah.
They. And that's why I asked Mike that question about Freddie, who wasn't exactly challenged all night, but you still got to make those saves, all that kind of stuff. So I actually thought the way he bounced back from that was very, very good. From Rick, Caps were destroyed tonight. They didn't have a prayer, and yet it took to overtime. That's Canes hockey, baby. From Jonathan, Svech still bringing the heat and look good. Nobody's doubting Svech's overall play, but we also know they don't get through the previous series without him scoring. They're not going to beat the Caps in this series unless guys like Svechnikov get on the score sheet. That's the most important part of it. Great that Stankoven's getting goals. I get all that stuff.
And that was a rare mistake by Washington, by the way. The turnover in their zone to pounce on that, capitalize on it the way that they did. We talked a little bit about this with John Shire during the college basketball season, like trying to maybe shorten the game and get out of there and win a certain way. I felt like Washington thought 1-0 was going to get them home. And maybe even they would be 1-0 going into the late third and they'd get a empty netter and win 2-0. I'm not sitting here telling you that Logan Thompson was bad. By no stretch of the imagination was he bad. But I also
he was fortunate.
I didn't watch most of that game being like, like sometimes with my guy Juicy from Nashville, like have a little bit of a memory here, people. Like we've seen Bobrovsky from Florida, 2 years ago, where the guy you could not get anything. You couldn't even hit the post on that guy.
No.
Right? Like, we've seen some phenomenal performances by the opposing goaltender. We've also seen some classic Canes. Let me shoot that thing right at your chest. I get all
There was
that.
a lot of that.
But you know what? And even McDonough at the end had to go, there you go. There's that shot volume on the Slavin game-winning goal.
Mm-hmm.
But in fairness to the people who are critical of the way that the Canes play, a lot of traffic on that last goal. Well, I think there's a lot of times where the Canes either shoot where there's an obvious path for it to be blocked.
Yes.
Or there's not enough traffic. It's a little bit more of that trigger happy. Wait a second, I gotta shoot it. Whereas I felt like that last goal, you saw Jarvis, you saw Stahl. They were all kind of swarming that goal.
Well, what's funny is we can get wrapped up on the 91 shot attempts, but there were instances where they were a little too pass happy early on in this game, and then
mostly on the power play.
And then the power play opportunity, especially there on the end of regulation, it was pass. No, get somebody in front of the net. Yeah. Obviously, that pays off, because that's the other thing too that would frustrate me about the Canes. You can get all the shots on net, but if you're not creating traffic, clearly Thompson's going to see all of them. He's going to see all of them, and that stuff matters. Some folks want Luke to finally hang some things in his office. So Brian over at Nice Price says, I got plenty of extra command strips to donate to Luke. Yeah, just like we had a guy, I think Iron Caniac on Twitter is like, dude, do we need to donate pictures and videos for you so you don't use those AI, that freaky AI? I'm like, you know what? He called it Temu Stanley Cup. I was like, well, you know what? Temu Stanley Cup for the Temu Sports Show of the Triangle. So I think it all works out in the end. Let's see what else we got here. Should there be less shot attempts and more shots on goal, better quality shots? Well, that's what the Capitals do. And obviously the Canes did a good job overall of getting past that. Let's see. What do we got here?
I think there's a way to have shot volume and traffic.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of sort of the key there.
I did not realize this. Al pointing out the Canes are now the betting fave for the Cup. I did not realize they were plus 350 on that one. That's insane that they would be the betting faves. But as you'd like to point out, the metrics do favor the Canes ultimately. Let's see. There was yes, from Michael. Aho is dad tired now. Yeah, that's a different level of tired.
Things I could help him on. I mean, he was not interested in any of my.
He looked tired.
My guidance.
Yeah, he's been through a lot.
That's good.
Yeah, man. Childbirth is a lot, man. I totally understand that. From Donnie, Caps looked rusty to start and then tired at the end. Ovechkin is obviously dealing with some aches and pains. Maybe. I thought both teams looked a little shaky to start after a week off, because that also affects the Canes. One thing that I do know that some Canes fans are pointing out, and something to look at here, because we saw this in the Montreal series, the Caps can get a little gassed as the games progress. That is certainly one thing that the Canes are going to dominate in, because of their depth, and just keep rolling it out there. So if this is going to be a win by submission, I will absolutely take it. Was it Matt from Carborough? Brindamore doesn't seem like a half-smoked kind of guy with a day off, but would he crumble hot Cheetos on the hot dog, Joe?
What is half smoke?
Oh, it's from Ben's Chili Bowl.
Oh, okay.
The hot dog joint, which we didn't make it out to when we were up there in DC for the ACC tournament.
I would wager Rod's never had a hot dog in his life.
You know what? Next time we talk to him.
Obius's corner.
Obius corner asking Rod. So
food questions.
What awful food have you not eaten? Have you tried this?
Have you?
I'd like to
I still don't believe him when he said he doesn't like working out. That was a lie.
That's a lie.
That was a front.
I believe it when Ovechkin says, I hate this. I believe that.
I
understand
what he was saying, that it is work, but this is a man who enjoys work.
He does.
Clearly.
Because he says he doesn't like how he feels if he doesn't.
Sure. We all have our own motivation.
Right. Just remember when we talked to him, he was on a beach vacation. He's out there doing laps and all that kind of stuff. Well, see, I mean, got to set the tone for the rest of the day. I'm like, you totally love working out. Anyway.
I was glad Freddie was able to come back in this game and play the way that he did. Not that I was concerned after seeing him in the hallway at the end of the Jersey series, but you never know. You know what I mean? In terms of being knocked out of the one game. Mm-hmm. I do think it was more of a precaution than anything else. Thought they were smart.
Very smart.
To smart Kochetkov in game 5. But, the way that he was moving around, the way that he looked, he looked sharp. He looked good.
The only thing,
I know people are saying that Freddie's cursed, but hey, you know what? You got to smoke them while you got them.
But not in that building, right?
Definitely not in that.
Not in that building.
That's our building.
Jeez. anyway from Ryan. Rod only enjoys cup wins. It's probably the only thing he actually does enjoy.
No. He enjoys his workout. I promise.
I know. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the After Dark. We'll have our regular show tomorrow. Call the OG Sports phone. I know a couple people have called it already, but we'll save those for the main show. Call it 919-444-2211. That is the OG Sports phone.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
Of course, that's always brought to you by Nature's Relief. Check them out, naturesreliefhempstore.com. And with the After Dark, it's brought to you by Bloomin' Blinds. Again, call them 919-980-9815. We're talking shot volume. We're talking blind volume. 10 or more, 10% off. Call our guy Chris at 919-980-9815. All right, that's going to wrap it up for the After Dark. We'll see you on the main show and then back for another After Dark on Thursday. Later.